In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. In those dark days, the remnants of Israel were driven from their land, scattered throughout nations that did not know their God. Yet within the vast kingdom of Persia, a precious story was taking shape, a story of faith, courage, and divine purpose. Esther, an orphan Jewish maiden hidden within the opulent walls of Shushan, walked the vibrant markets filled with spices that hung heavy in the air. She was raised by her cousin Mordecai, who nurtured her fragile spirit, telling tales of the faithfulness of God. The aroma of cardamom and cinnamon surrounded her, but a quieter scent of sorrow lingered in her heart. She bore the weight of her heritage alone, as a remnant lost amidst a sea of Persian idolatry. In an unforeseen twist of fate, Esther's delicate beauty caught the eyes of King Xerxes. When the call came for the young maidens to be gathered, Esther, though fearful of her identity as a Jewess, found herself draped in royal silks and adorned with gold. The throne room glittered with splendor, yet the glow of her new life could not eclipse her inner turmoil. Her secret, the truth about her people, set her apart, a truth that could lead to either deliverance or disaster. Whispers of treachery rippled through the palace. Haman, the king's prideful advisor, harbored a malevolent hatred for the Jews. Decrees of destruction were being formed, the shadows of death encroaching upon Esther's kin. Her heart raced, heavy with the knowledge that the fate of her people teetered on the edge of despair. How could she act? How could she, a mere queen of a despised race, risk everything to protect her own? Mordecai's voice broke through her fears, a message steeped in urgency. Do not think to yourself that in the king's palace you will escape any more than all the other Jews. If you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will rise for the Jews from another place, but you and your father's house will perish. And who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this? With each word, an ember ignited within her, a calling to rise against the tide of fear. Esther deliberated, her heart echoing those ancient voices of valor. Would she mirror the faith of Abraham or the courage of David? She recognized the peril that lay before her, the decree that forbade uninvited approaches to the throne. Yet through her struggle, an unyielding resolve surfaced. Must she choose the safety of anonymity when her people were in peril? Determined, Esther summoned her maids, rallying them to fast and prayer for strength. As the murmurs of the city faded into a sacred silence, she prepared herself for the audience with Xerxes. The weight of her ancestors pressed upon her, a tapestry of hope and desperation woven with the threads of God's providence. Could her brave steps bring forth a miraculous deliverance among the shadows? Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select all notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. As Esther prepared to confront the king, an electrifying tension filled the air. Could her faith prompt divine intervention? The cost of standing firm was steep, yet the hope of deliverance surged within her. Would her bravery rewrite the fate of her people, or would it lead her to destruction? The unanswered question burned in the hearts of the faithful. What was God's miraculous plan that awaited to be revealed within the walls of Shushan? As the sun dipped low over the city of Shushan, casting long shadows across the marble courtyards, Esther steadied her breath. She adorned herself in her finest garments, resplendent in colors that resonated with her longing for both beauty and identity. The chambers of the palace felt unfamiliar, yet the call of her people echoed louder than the opulence surrounding her. With trembling hands, she approached the great throne room, where Xerxes sat in all his royal regalia, draped in robes that shimmered like the morning sun. The air thickened with anticipation, as if the very heavens held their breath. Would she, a solitary Jewish maiden, breach the sacred silence of the king's presence? The moment arrived, and she stepped forward, her heart pounding. Courage forged through prayer and fasting quickened her steps. As Esther crossed the threshold, the king's gaze shifted to her, and within his stormy eyes, she searched for mercy. Would compassion soften his heart? Queen Esther, the king said, his voice resonating like thunder. What is your request? It shall be granted, even to the half of my kingdom. Esther felt a wave of relief wash over her, yet she remained resolute. To divulge her identity now could spell disaster. If it pleases the king, she began, her voice steady despite the storm within her, let the king and Haman come today to a feast that I have prepared. Intrigued by her invitation, King Xerxes agreed. He summoned Haman, who approached with an air of smug confidence, unaware that his designs were unraveling before him. The two men dined with Esther as the fragrant delicacies graced the table, yet her heart remained heavy, burdened with the imminent threat to her people. As the night wore on, Esther's resolve intensified. How could she expose Haman without revealing herself as a Jew? Would her courage be enough to gather the remnants and save her kin? The king's voice broke her reverie. What is your true desire, Queen Esther? Why do you keep this mystery before us? In that pivotal moment, Esther was reminded of Mordecai's words. Summoning every ounce of her inner strength, she declared, If I have found favor in your sight, O king, and if it pleases you, let my life be granted for my petition, and the life of my people for my request. For we have been sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, killed, and annihilated. Silence enveloped the room, the air pulsed with shock and disbelief. Xerxes rose from his throne, confusion shadowing his face. Who is he, and where is he who has dared to do this? In that moment of divine tension, every eye turned upon Haman, whose face turned pale with horror. The truth unveiled before them a plot wrought with treachery and deceit. Esther pointed a finger at Haman, proclaiming, a foe and enemy. This wicked Haman. Rage ignited in the king's heart as he stormed from the chamber, leaving a trembling Haman to stumble in hopelessness. Yet, unbeknownst to Esther, layers of providence were unfolding beyond those walls. What she did not yet understand was the decree of destruction mandated against the Jews was part of a larger, intricate tapestry woven by God's sovereign hand. Just as the sun sets to reveal the mysteries of the night, so too would God rise to illuminate his plan for his people. How would this unfolding drama cement the destiny of Esther and her kin? And what greater purpose would arise from her bravery? The shadows held secrets yet to be unveiled in the divine orchestration of redemption that awaited in Shushan. As the sun set upon the city of Shushan, casting an orange hue that danced upon the marble floors, King Xerxes returned with fire in his eyes. He had summoned his guards, and the heart of Haman sank with each step he took back into the throne room. The air was thick with tension, the echoes of Esther's declaration rang in his ears, the fate of her people lay in his hands. Xerxes, his countenance fierce, demanded, What treachery is this, Haman? How could you conspire to destroy a people under my reign, deceiving not only my trust but the very essence of justice? Haman, in his terror, stumbled forward, quaking beneath the weight of his impending doom. My lord, I acted out of loyalty to the crown. The Jews, they are scattered and refuse to bow before you, yet the error was mine. Spare me. His words tumbled out, frantic, barely coherent in the shadow of the king's righteous anger, but Xerxes, unmoved, turned his gaze upon the banquet table, still adorned with the remnants of the meal that had once shimmered with hope and camaraderie. You shall pay for your deceit, Haman. By the decree of the king, it shall be done to you as you sought to do to the Jews. As walls echoed his proclamation, the guards surged forward, binding Haman in chains of judgment. The table, once the setting for a feast, now held the weight of malice unmasked. Esther, witnessing the swift justice unfold before her eyes, felt a tumult of relief wash over her along with a heavy solemnity. She dared not rejoice, her heart remained burdened for her people, knowing that now the clarion call of their deliverance rang true. Beneath this swirl of consequence, the people of God in Shushan felt the undercurrents of fear and anxiety gnawing at their hearts. They could yet be annihilated should a decree remain unrevoked. The silent prayers of the faithful surged toward heaven, a desperate plea for intervention. Had their cries reached the ears of the Most High, in a dark corner of the palace, whispers of unrest spread among the emissaries. They watched as Haman's misdeeds culminated in calamity. The gallows he had built for Mordecai now cast a long shadow, awaiting their dark purpose. The sight stirred the hearts of those who had once mocked the Jews, now sensing the potential crisis that loomed over them all, yet in the midst of impending chaos, the hammer of God's justice fell swift and decisive. Mordecai, once in mourning, now found his heart emboldened, believing that perhaps this was the moment he had been praying for, a chance for God's people to rise in triumph. With swift resolve, Xerxes ordered the execution of Haman upon the gallows designed for Mordecai. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the once mighty adversary met his fate, a solitary reminder of divine providence that rules above all earthly thrones. The king, still reeling from betrayal, turned his attention back to his queen. "Esther," he said, his voice softer but laden with authority, "the decree against your people must be lifted." But Esther, with a heart still troubled, grasped the king's hands and implored, "My lord, grant me my request. May we stand united, but it must be through wisdom that we seek the path to deliverance." And thus did Esther reveal the depth of her courage. Through her voice, the sound of God's sovereign purpose began to echo throughout the land. For this was but the prelude to a greater deliverance. Their lives, tangled within the threads of fate, were on the brink of monumental change, yet as the king's decree began to unfold, a glimmer of the unknown flickered at the heart of the mystery. What did God desire to accomplish through these trials, and how would Esther's boldness illuminate the path forward? In the land of Persia, the stage was set, the true depth of God's plan was yet to be revealed, a mystery of redemption, and the flickers of hope ignited a fire-bound future for the people of Israel. As the dawn broke over Shushan, the light filtered through the tall windows of the palace, illuminating the seriousness of the moment. Esther, with a heart heavy yet resolute, stood before King Xerxes, who still bore the weight of betrayal. The air was thick with anticipation, the fate of thousands hung on her next words. "Your Majesty," she began, her voice steady, "the edict that Haman set in place against my people cannot simply be undone with a word. We are still marked for destruction as daylight brings hope to the weary. I beseech you, let us devise a plan for our survival." Xerxes, who had seen the depth of Haman's treachery, nodded gravely, his mind racing. "What must be done, Queen Esther? Speak, and I shall act. Your counsel rings with wisdom." Esther took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her ancestors' faith stirring within her spirit. "Let a new decree go out in your name, O king, for their survival. Write it in your own hand that the Jews be permitted to defend themselves against any who seek to do them harm. Let them rise as a unified people." Xerxes looked upon his queen, sensing the urgency in her words, yet knowing that a king's decree, once pronounced, could not be easily altered even by his own will. "It shall be as you say, but know this, the scrolls shall bear my seal, and it will carry the weight of my power. Therefore, we must act quickly." With swiftness of purpose, Esther and Xerxes summoned scribes to write the new decree, and the king's seal was affixed with authority. The words etched upon the scroll conveyed life and hope, freedom to the downtrodden, strength to the afflicted, and justice pouring forth like a river in a parched land. Meanwhile, news spread like wildfire throughout Shushan and beyond. Proclamations announcing the safety and rights of the Jews ignited flickers of hope in the hearts of those who had mourned their fate. Yet, as the decree reached the ears of Haman's followers, fear and confusion arose among them. The shadow of judgment that once consumed the land now hunted them instead. Mordecai, emboldened by the newly decreed freedom, stood at the city gate, his heart echoing the promises of the Lord. "O people of God, lift up your voices. For though we were deemed for destruction, our God has turned the tide." As murmurs rose among the gathered crowds, an air of transformation settled over the city. The Jews, who had once mourned and fasted under the weight of despair, began to rejoice in the promises of their God, a clarity returning to their hearts. For had he not brought Esther into the palace for such a time as this? Unbeknownst to them, the tremors of their rising strength reached the very heart of their enemies. They saw the tides shifting, and an overwhelming terror began to grip the hearts of those who had once mocked them. The plotting that had been rife now turned upon itself, as fear crept into the hearts of their adversaries. Yet, amid the turmoil, a deeper purpose lay hidden beneath the surface of their newfound freedom. The true plan of God was unfolding quietly, weaving a tapestry of redemption that few could yet perceive. As the sun set once again on Shushan, casting long shadows across the courtyards and streets, the tension within the walls arose. Esther grasped Mordecai's hand, an understanding passing between them that the battle was just beginning. For darkness would not relinquish its grip so easily, deception lurked, waiting to strike anew, and thus, as the shadows lengthened, the sovereign hand of God began to rise, casting his light upon the path ahead. The stage was set, and the promise of his deliverance began to whisper through the hearts of his people. The mystery deepened, as Esther bathed in the weight of those divine threads encompassing destiny, daring to ponder, what other schemes, already laid in the heavens, awaited their revelation. As the city of Shushan stirred with newfound hope, the threads of providence entwined around the lives of the people, unseen yet potent. In every corner, the decrees from the palace rang forth, and spirits lifted where there had once been despair. On the morrow, a great assembly was called in the central square of the city. Mordecai stood upon an elevated platform, his voice echoing against the stone walls, calling the Jews to gather. "Come, fellow Israelites! The Lord has turned our mourning into dancing. Let us not waste this moment of divine favor. Let us stand firm and prepare for the battle that surely lies ahead against our enemies." The gathered assembly listened intently, eyes wide with anticipation, their hearts kindled with hope. "Though we have been marked for destruction," he continued, "the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob has fortified us. Our ancestors have beheld his faithfulness in times of trial. Let us remember the covenant established with our fathers and boldly reclaim our inheritance." The words of Mordecai struck a chord deep within the hearts of the people. They began to chant, "In God we trust. In God we stand." Their voices crescendoed in unity, echoing through the streets, causing even the walls of Shushan to tremble with fervor. Yet, amid the rejoicing, the shadows began to stir. Fear had gripped the hearts of Haman's followers, and they conspired against the decree that now threatened their safety. In whispered tones, they plotted harm, seeking to undo the work that God had begun through Esther and Mordecai. They gathered in the darkness, weaving their scheme against the light that shone brightly upon the Jews. At the palace, news of the unrest reached the ears of King Xerxes. He called for Esther, who entered the chamber adorned in regal splendor but with a heart burdened with concern. "What is troubling you, my queen? Your countenance bears heaviness," he inquired, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. Esther, with holy resolve, addressed her husband, "O king, though a decree now stands in our favor, our enemies remain fierce and unyielding. Surely, they will not retreat easily. We must fortify our people with courage, for the Lord is our protector." Xerxes, stirred by her words, replied, "Then let it be known throughout the land that the Jews have the king's protection. Stand united, and none shall dare rise against them." Meanwhile, as the edict of protection spread, Haman, consumed with rage at the turn of events, devised a sinister plot. He resolved to confront Mordecai directly, seeking the chance to silence the voice of hope that echoed through the city. In this confrontation, darkness would seek to extinguish the light, but what Haman did not know was that his end was being orchestrated by the very providence of God. As Esther prepared for the days ahead, she gathered her maidens and spoke, "Let us fast and pray, for the time has come for our God to intervene. We stand upon the precipice of a great victory, yet our reliance must be upon his mighty hand." In obedience, they joined Esther in solemn prayer, seeking divine wisdom and strength. Each heart beat with the fervor of expectation, for the plan of salvation for Israel was unfolding powerfully before them, and so, as night fell upon Shushan, the spiritual tension mounted. God's orchestrated tapestry of deliverance wove unseen among the hearts of men, mirroring the revelation of his sovereign intention. Each participant played their role within his grand design, yet the full extent of his plan lingered just beyond comprehension. Little did they know, in the shadows of their struggle, God's ultimate victory was already being secured, for the dawn would soon break with an even greater promise, one that would turn the hearts of nations and fulfill the long-hidden covenant of his people. What other chapters remained unwritten in the story of their deliverance, and how would God's sovereign plan flank their every fear? As the sun awakened upon the city of Shushan, its rays revealed not just the beauty of a new day, but also the weight of anticipation that hung heavy in the air. The people moved about, their hearts still aflame with the words of Mordecai, but shadows lurked, and restless spirits stirred among the followers of Haman. They whispered and plotted against the Jews, each furtive glance a testament to their fear and desperation. In his secret chamber, Haman seethed with rage, his thoughts swirling like a storm. "How dare they rejoice when my plans have been thwarted?" he muttered, gripping the armrest of his throne. "I shall not rest until this Mordecai is undone, nor shall I allow the Jews to rise above their station. I will summon my allies, and together we will crush this hope before it can bloom." Meanwhile, Mordecai, sensing that Haman's wrath would soon manifest, traveled through the winding streets of Shushan, seeking to instill courage in his people. He met families along the way, eyes wide with fear, and spoke to them with unwavering conviction. "Fear not. The Lord our God is with us. Just as he delivered our fathers from the hand of Pharaoh, so shall he deliver us from this foe. We must remain steadfast and united." The people, inspired by Mordecai's words, found strength in their shared identity as the chosen ones of the Most High. They resolved to gather together once more, this time to engage in fervent prayer and fasting, beseeching the Lord to aid them in their time of need. Returning to the palace, Esther sensed the import of the impending confrontation. She knew the time was drawing near for her to reveal her true identity to the king. The burden of her people rested heavily upon her heart, and she too joined her maidens, proclaiming, "We will not eat nor drink until our God answers our cries. For he has been faithful to our ancestors, and he shall not abandon us now." In the quiet hours of night, they prayed, voices melding as one, a symphony of intercession reaching the throne of heaven. The intensity of their supplication stirred the angelic hosts, reminding them that God's covenant with Israel endures through all tribulations. Little did they know that their prayers were weaving together a divine tapestry that would soon unravel in miraculous ways. At that very moment, as Esther's voice ascended in prayer, a restless king found himself unable to sleep. Xerxes tossed and turned, troubled by visions of impending calamity. "Bring to me the scrolls of the Chronicles," he commanded, desperate to find solace in the records of his reign. As the parchments were spread before him, the king's eyes fell upon the account of Mordecai, who had previously uncovered a plot against his life. "What honor has been bestowed upon this man?" Xerxes inquired, an unexpected gratitude filling his heart. "Nothing has been done for him," replied his attendants. The king, stirred by the spirit of providence, declared, "Then let it be known that Mordecai shall be honored, for our God is turning the hearts of kings even now." Elsewhere, Haman, entering the palace with scheming intentions to speak against Mordecai, was met with an alterable fate. What shall be done for the man the king delights to honor? He heard, and in his vanity, he thought the honor was for himself. Let him be clothed in royal robes and paraded through the city. Yet, as Providence would have it, Haman was chosen to fulfill this very task for his sworn enemy, uncovering the divine irony that God's plans cannot be thwarted by man's foolishness. As the stage was set for confrontation, the faith of Esther and Mordecai hung in the balance, leading towards an unimaginable climax. And in the light of their struggle, what would emerge was the resplendent glory of God's unfailing promise. For the dawn was breaking, yet still, the unfolding of his sovereign will yet held mysteries yet unrevealed, igniting a deeper yearning for the deliverance that would echo across generations to come. What greater reflections of his divine timetable awaited in the shadows? In the opulence of the palace, Haman returned, his heart now burdened with the weight of unexpected humiliation. Clothed in royal garments, his voice trembled not with the authority he sought to wield but with the deepening dread of the unfolding circumstances. He spoke words bitter with irony to those gathered. "Mordecai, the Jew, has been honored by the king. But little can honor lift him above his station, for his kind is still despised." Yet in Haman's heart, an anger burned like a fire, consuming his reason and leading him deeper into darkness. He stormed from the palace with vengeance as his only companion, plotting not just against Mordecai, but against the entire people of Israel. "I shall not rest until they are crushed," he vowed, grinding his teeth in fury. Meanwhile, Esther's heart was heavy as the news of Haman's schemes began to stir within her, revealing a veiled anguish that pierced her spirit. In her chamber, She sought the face of the Lord, imploring him with fervor. God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, you have placed me in this position for such a time as this. What is your will? Are we to be delivered through me? Grant me the courage and wisdom to walk in obedience. In the depths of her supplication, the Spirit of God enveloped her, igniting strength like fire. She rose from her knees, motioning to her maidens with resolute purpose. Prepare a banquet. I will invite the king and Haman to dine with us. For in unity, perhaps my voice may yet influence their fates. As the day of the banquet approached, Mordecai continued to rally the people. Courage filled the air as families gathered in fervent anticipation, their cries ascending in prayer. They implored, O Lord, preserve our lives, and remember your covenant. We stand firm in the face of despair. As twilight fell upon Shushan, the moment of confrontation loomed large. Esther donned her royal robes, yet the fineries of man trailed behind the divine armor she bore in her heart. She approached the king's hall, the weight of her lineage pressing down upon her, as if 1,000 generations both prepared her and pushed her forward. Inside, King Xerxes reclined on his royal seat, his eyes scanning the room, brightened by the evening's promise. Haman, oblivious to the threads of fate being spun around him, awaited the feast, thinking the night would yield to him glory over Mordecai. At the heart of the gathering, Esther entered. The atmosphere thickened as silence enveloped the room. All eyes fell upon her, a queen reaching for her destiny, her heart racing as a wild dove's wings. What is your request, Queen Esther? Xerxes inquired, his voice echoing in the hall, laced with authority and curiosity. With a heart as firm as her faith, she began, If it pleases the king, let him and Haman come to a banquet I have prepared for them. A ripple of anxious whispers swept through the room, yet as the king nodded, an unseen hand guided the evening's course. And that instant, while Haman basked in the false glow of superiority, a divine disturbance surged through the heavens. Angels poised in anticipation, knowing that the King of Kings would not allow his covenant people to fall into despair. Yet even as Esther's plea began to take shape, the sinister threads woven by Haman lurked in the shadows, threatening the very identity of God's chosen. But what stirring deliverance awaited them in the tapestry of fate? What declaration of destruction would be met with redemptive mercy? As the banquet unfolded, the question lingered, could a single act of faith alter the annals of destiny itself? The hearts of all would soon awaken to a glorious revelation as the tapestry of divine timing began to unravel. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting twilight shadows in the grand hall of Xerxes, the stage was set for a pivotal encounter. The banquet table was adorned with exquisite delicacies from across the realm, but beneath the surface, a tension lay thick, woven with the fates of many. Esther positioned herself at the center, a vessel of divine purpose, her heart pounding with the weight of unspoken truth. Seated across from her, Xerxes and Haman savored their first course. The king lifted his goblet, glimmering with the finest wine, its opulence a stark contrast to the heavy burden on Esther's soul. With every sip, Haman indulged in his perceived power, cloaked in arrogance, blind to the storm brewing around him. Eat and drink, my lords, Esther beckoned, masking her resolve behind a serene countenance. Within, however, her spirit stirred, reminding her of the plight of her people and the treachery that Haman wove. She lifted her gaze to the king, courage enkindled by prayer. Before we proceed, she said, her voice steady yet gentle, might I speak of a matter that weighs heavily upon my heart? The king turned his full attention, his brow furrowing with intrigue. What troubles you, Esther? Whatever your petition, it shall be granted, up to half the kingdom. Haman's anticipation swelled, believing the king's favor bore witness to his own elevation. Yet, unbeknownst to him, the heart of a queen lay poised for revelation, much like David confronting Goliath. Your Majesty, Esther began, each word crafted in the crucible of her faith, I beseech you, spare my life and the lives of my people. For we have been sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, killed, and annihilated. If we were merely to be sold as slaves, I would have kept silent, for our suffering would be bearable. But this destruction has been wrought by none other than your servant, Haman. A gasp echoed softly in the hall. Haman's countenance fell, realizing the scale of the danger that now surrounded him. The weight of betrayal settled upon him like lead. Xerxes' eyes blazed with fury as he registered the gravity of Esther's words. "Who is he, and where is he," the king thundered, "who would do such a thing? Here is the man, Haman, the villain who has sought to bring ruin upon my people for his own greed and vengeance," Esther proclaimed, her voice rising with righteous indignation. The hall descended into chaos, whispers and gasps coursing through the gathered nobles. Haman stood frozen, his heart pounding, dark realizations crashing upon him like a merciless wave. This is madness. He stumbled, attempting to defend himself, but his voice faltered against the tide of Esther's conviction. As the king rose, his fury uncontained, the Spirit of the Lord moved upon him with a determination to uphold justice. In that moment, the eyes of heaven beheld the unfolding drama, for the God of Israel watched over his covenant people. "Bind him," Xerxes commanded, the decree echoing with finality. "Let the foe of the Jews be brought to justice." As Haman was seized and led away, a great silence fell. Yet within that silence, hope flickered like a flame, a promise unfolding with divine intricacy. What redemption might spring from this act of courage? How would the tapestry of Esther's bravery weave into the destiny of Israel? The unfolding drama did not conclude in vengeance but beckoned forth a profound legacy of divine intervention. Would God's sovereign plan of salvation rise from the ashes of this confrontation, igniting a hope that would carry through generations yet to come? When Haman was carried from the presence of Xerxes, dread descended upon the banquet hall, ensconcing all who witnessed this divine showdown. Esther's heart, though once burdened, now brimmed with a flicker of hope, for the God of Israel was at work even in the face of imminent calamity. The king, still reeling from the shocking turn of events, withdrew into a chamber to wrestle with the turmoil that enveloped him. His nobles and attendants remained, casting furtive glances at Esther, who now stood alone yet unyielding in her resolve. Turning towards the window, Esther unveiled her soul to the heavens, calling upon the name of the Lord, her prayers a sweet incense rising to those eternal courts. "O God of my ancestors, grant wisdom to the king and deliverance to your people. You know our plight, let your will be executed even now." In a distant corner of the city, unbeknownst to her but known to the Almighty, Mordecai, her beloved cousin, caught wind of the happenings in the palace. His heart raced as he pondered the fiery sweep of justice ignited by Esther's bravery. Yet he also grieved for Haman's wrath, eager to protect his people from further devastation. Meanwhile, oppressed spirits weighed heavily upon Haman, for as he was led away to the king's guard, the reality of his downfall sank in. With each step, a crushing dread encircled him like shackles. He had plotted the demise of Esther's people but found himself now caught in the web of those very schemes. "What have I done?" he wailed within the depths of his heart, but there was neither mercy nor reprieve coming to him from the heavens. The king arose from his seclusion, newly resolved. The weight of Esther's words echoed in his ears. To destroy an entire people for the whim of one man. Consumed with righteous anger, he summoned his advisers and sought counsel. What must be done with this Haman, this accursed one? How shall he repay the wrongs he has wrought? It was then that a servant, trembling but bold, recalled the record of Mordecai, who had once foiled an assassination plot against the king, an act of loyalty now shrouded by the cloak of Haman's treachery. "Your Majesty," he said, "it was Mordecai the Jew who revealed the plot of those who sought to kill you." The king's interest was piqued. "What honor has been given to Mordecai for this deed?" "Nothing has been done," replied the servant, fearing the king's ire. With a purpose ignited by divine providence, Xerxes declared, "Let it be known that the true servant of our kingdom shall be honored." A wave of divine reprisal surged through the land as the pieces of this harrowing tale began to align, orchestrated by the hand of the Almighty. Esther, Mordecai, and a remnant of the Jews were about to witness the fulfillment of promises made long ago, promises that spoke of deliverance and a future hope. As the king plotted the elevation of Mordecai amidst the chaos, whispers swept through the court, igniting the flames of expectation. Would this remarkable turn of events lead to the salvation of a nation? What reckoning awaited Haman, who had sought to extinguish the very light of hope? The hour of reckoning approached, and in that sacred tension, the hearts of all trembled. Little did they realize, divine threads were intricately woven to weave a story of restoration, where the faith of one young queen stood poised to transform history. But what magnificent conclusion awaited them, born from God's sovereign hand. As the dawn broke anew over Shushan, the air pulsed with expectation, filled with whispers of hope and trepidation. The hearts of the Jewish people reverberated with the promise of deliverance that had been woven through Esther's courageous stance. The city, a fragile tapestry of fear and faith, awaited the outcome of the king's righteous anger against Haman, whose treachery had darkened their futures. That I and the grand court, the weight of the unfolding narrative pressed down upon everyone present. With Haman now ensnared in the web of his own malevolence, the decree against the Jews loomed ominously. Yet, the sovereignty of God was emerging like the sun over the mountains, dispelling the shadows of despair. The whispers of the Lord's faithfulness inspired Esther as she shared with her people the resolve rising within her. Our God has not abandoned us, she declared with newfound vigor. He has chosen this moment for our redemption. Meanwhile, in the king's chamber, Xerxes resumed his deliberations with a fire ignited by justice. As he considered what actions to take against Haman, his heart remained restless for retribution. The realization of Mordecai's previous loyalty weighed heavily. Here was a man who stood for truth amid malice, one worthy of honor. Summon Mordecai, he commanded with authority. The guards rushed forth, traversing the palace halls to bring forth the man whose loyalty had been forgotten. Mordecai arrived with purpose etched upon his brow, the gravity of his situation overshadowed momentarily by the urgency of his people's plight. As he entered, he beheld the countenance of the king transformed. You shall be rewarded for your faithfulness, Xerxes declared, his voice resonating with the weight of decree. Clothe him in royal robes. Let him ride upon the king's horse that all may hear of his valor. Mordecai's heart raced, for this public honor held great significance not just for him but for the entire Jewish nation. What greater story was unfolding, a narrative of vindication woven with the threads of divine purpose and salvation. Clothed with the colors of victory and crowned in triumph, he was led through the streets by those who had cast their lots against him. Thus shall be done to the man whom the king delights to honor. The words echoed through the city, stirring the hearts of every onlooker. The people saw not only Mordecai in splendor but a glimmer of hope for their own redemption. Yet within the shadows, Haman, laden with dread, watched the spectacle unravel. Each thundering hoofbeat resonated with the thundering cadence of his own terrible fate. For in the echo of celebration rose also the specter of his impending justice. How the people would twist the knife of remembrance into his heart. Amid these soaring tensions, Esther prepared for her next audience with Xerxes. Resolute and guided by the Spirit, she approached the king once more, her heart alight with the truth of her identity and the plight of her people. May the king grant me one further request, she implored, her voice steady with conviction. Let a new decree be issued that our people may defend themselves against those who rise up to annihilate us. The king, bolstered by the gravity of the current upheaval and desirous to protect Esther's kin, nodded in agreement. It shall be as you have requested, he promised, and thus he swiftly commanded another decree formed with the same authority as Haman's this time, one that blessed the Jews with the right to defend themselves and promised them protection as favored subjects of the realm. As the edict spread through Shushan and beyond, the tide shifted palpably, the hearts of the Jews ignited with newfound determination. Fear, which had once gripped them, began to evaporate, replaced with a resolute hope born of faith and divine intervention. They would rise united, charged with the strength of their Creator, and so came the day that saw the reversal of Haman's insidious plot, where upon the gallows he had crafted for Mordecai, he met his own end, a fitting reminder of the swift justice of God against those who sought to uphold evil. The legacies of Mordecai and Esther intertwined as they stood tall against adversity, declaring through their actions that faith prevails, and God's purpose shall not be forsaken. With shouts of joy ringing throughout the streets, the Israelites rejoiced in their deliverance, declaring feasts of celebration that would echo through generations. For we have endured, they proclaimed, and our God has found favor upon us. It was a time of restoration and renewal as, in Shushan and throughout the lands of Persia, the legacy of Esther became immortalized. The people pledged to celebrate the victory of their God, instituting the festival of Purim, a testament to his unwavering love and relentless provision for those who stand in faith. Let all remember, God's purposes and plans unfold through those willing to be his vessels to bring light into the shadows. And let us echo Esther's courageous spirit as we, too, rise to face the defining moment set before us, declaring his deliverance. If these powerful narratives bless you, do not let this moment pass. Subscribe immediately to the channel to remain anchored in God's word and to witness how his promise transforms lives even today. Leave a like now to help spread God's eternal truth through the world around us. Your participation is vital in drawing others to his faithfulness. Comment below, sharing how the stories of Esther and God's undeniable providence have shaped your faith journey, for your reflections are a testament to his goodness. And do not wait even one more second. Share this story with at least 5 friends who need to hear about the power of God's deliverance. Together, let us proclaim his greatness and share the miraculous hope found in Christ.